Finding Inner Peace Through Acceptance. Chapter 1. The Quest for Inner Peace. Inner peace, a state of tranquility, balance, and contentment that so many of us yearn for. Yet, despite our efforts, it often feels just out of reach. We chase after it through achievements, relationships, or external circumstances, only to find that lasting peace cannot be found outside ourselves. But what if the key to inner peace has been within us all along? What if the secret lies in one powerful yet simple word: acceptance? Acceptance is not resignation or passivity, rather, it is a conscious choice to embrace life as it is, without judgment or resistance. In this journey, I challenge myself to find peace through acceptance, to see if I can truly welcome everything life throws my way. Can you join me in this challenge? Chapter 2. The Resistance That Creates Suffering. We've all been there, moments when life hands us challenges we never expected or wanted. Perhaps it's the heartbreak of a failed relationship, the crushing loss of a loved one, or the disappointment of an unfulfilled dream. Maybe it's the unpredictability of life itself, the constant change that we struggle to control. Our instinctual reaction? Resistance. We resist pain, sadness, and discomfort. We try to suppress our emotions, distract ourselves, or deny our reality. We cling to how things should be, rather than accepting how they are. But resistance only breeds more suffering. As the famous saying goes, what you resist persists. Imagine trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. Similarly, the more we fight against life's inevitable changes, the more pain we create for ourselves. This principle is deeply embedded in Buddhist philosophy, which teaches that suffering, dukkha, arises not from pain itself but from our attachment and aversion. The root of resistance: attachment and aversion. The Buddha identified attachment, raga, and aversion, dvesha, as two primary causes of suffering. When we cling to pleasure, we create expectations and dependencies. When reality fails to meet those expectations, we suffer. Likewise, when we resist pain and discomfort, we fuel a cycle of frustration, anger, and distress. Consider a storm. The wind howls, the rain pours, and the thunder roars. If we resist, trying to stop the storm or wishing it away, we only exhaust ourselves. But if we simply acknowledge its presence, take shelter, and allow it to pass, we remain at peace. This is the essence of equanimity, upekkha, in Buddhist practice, neither clinging nor rejecting, but simply observing. The illusion of control. Much of our resistance comes from the illusion that we can control life's unfolding. We meticulously plan our futures, define our identities through achievements, and seek security in the impermanent. However, change is the only constant. Just as the seasons shift, people change, circumstances evolve, and nothing remains fixed. Buddhism teaches the concept of anicca, or impermanence. Everything arises and passes away. When we resist this truth, we suffer. But when we embrace impermanence, we find liberation. Instead of fearing loss, we can appreciate the present moment fully, knowing that it, too, will change. Acceptance, the path to freedom. True freedom comes not from controlling life but from surrendering to it. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It is an active process of acknowledging reality without judgment. When we accept pain, it transforms from an enemy to a teacher. Instead of resisting sadness, we can sit with it, understand it, and allow it to pass through us. Mindfulness, sati, and meditation, bhavana, are powerful tools to cultivate acceptance. Through meditation, we learn to observe thoughts and emotions without getting entangled in them. We see pain as a passing sensation, not an identity. We develop a spacious awareness that allows life to flow naturally, rather than trying to force it into our limited expectations. Letting go. the ultimate liberation. To let go does not mean to abandon responsibility, but to release our tight grip on how things should be. Letting go means trusting the flow of life, knowing that joy and sorrow, gain and loss, success and failure are all part of the greater tapestry of existence. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha states, "Let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, and cross to the farther shore of existence. With mind wholly liberated, you shall come no more to birth and death." By letting go, we find peace in the midst of chaos. We understand that suffering is not in the pain itself, but in our resistance to it. And when resistance dissolves, all that remains is the natural flow of life, fluid, ever-changing, and ultimately, free. Chapter 3. The Power of Acceptance, a Pathway to Freedom. So, what happens when we stop resisting? When we allow things to be as they are? Acceptance doesn't mean we approve of everything that happens. It doesn't mean we stop striving for a better life. Rather, it means we acknowledge our current reality with openness and understanding. It's the ability to say, "This is what is. How can I work with it instead of against it?" Acceptance brings clarity, wisdom, and emotional resilience. It allows us to let go of the exhausting battle against reality and instead embrace the present moment for what it truly is. The mindful approach to acceptance. One of the best ways to cultivate acceptance is through mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in each moment. Instead of labeling experiences as good or bad, mindfulness teaches us to observe them without judgment. When we watch our thoughts and emotions with curiosity rather than resistance, we create space for peace to emerge. Understanding impermanence and letting go. A core teaching in Buddhism is the concept of impermanence, anicca. Everything in life, emotions, relationships, circumstances, is in a constant state of flux. When we resist this natural flow, we create suffering. However, when we embrace impermanence, we free ourselves from the burden of attachment and fear of loss. Letting go does not mean giving up, rather, it is the conscious choice to release our tight grip on control. The more we accept that change is inevitable, the more we can find peace amid life's uncertainties. Through meditation and self-inquiry, we begin to understand that clinging only deepens suffering, while surrendering allows us to flow harmoniously with life. Cultivating compassion and self-acceptance. True acceptance also extends to how we treat ourselves. Many of us carry self-judgment and guilt, resisting who we are in the present moment. But just as we learn to accept external realities, we must also practice self-compassion. Loving-kindness meditation, metta, is a profound practice that fosters self-acceptance. By directing gentle, affirming thoughts toward ourselves and others, we break free from self-criticism and develop an inner landscape of kindness and understanding. When we stop resisting who we are, we can grow and transform from a place of love rather than force. Embracing acceptance as a daily practice. Acceptance is not a one-time realization, it is a continuous practice. Every day presents opportunities to choose acceptance over resistance. Whether facing unexpected challenges, dealing with difficult emotions, or encountering setbacks, we can remind ourselves, "This is the moment I have. How can I embrace it fully?" By integrating mindfulness, understanding impermanence, and cultivating self-compassion, we unlock the profound power of acceptance. This path leads to inner freedom, one where we no longer fight against reality but instead learn to move with it. Finding peace in the ever-changing nature of existence. Chapter 4. My Personal Journey, Learning Acceptance Through Loss. For a long time, I struggled with acceptance. One of the most difficult lessons came when I lost my grandmother, a woman full of love, wisdom, and kindness. Her passing left a void in my heart, and for months, I resisted the pain, refusing to accept the reality of her absence. I distracted myself with work, buried my emotions, and tried to move on without truly grieving. But the more I avoided my feelings, the more they consumed me. I convinced myself that if I kept busy enough, I wouldn't have to face the truth. However, avoidance is not a cure, it is a delay. And emotions do not simply vanish because we ignore them. They wait, building up in the background until we have no choice but to confront them. Then, one day, I decided to sit with my grief. Instead of running from it, I allowed myself to feel it fully. I let the sadness wash over me. I cried, I remembered, and I accepted. In that stillness, I began to understand the teachings of impermanence, the very core of Buddhist philosophy. Life is fleeting, and attachment to permanence only brings suffering. My grandmother had always taught me to embrace change, yet I had resisted this very lesson in her passing. Through my grief, I turned to meditation. Each morning, I sat in silence, breathing deeply, allowing the waves of sorrow to rise and fall like the tide. At first, it was unbearable. The pain felt raw and overwhelming. But as days passed, I started to witness my grief from a place of stillness. I was no longer drowning in it, I was observing it. The more I practiced, the more I realized that pain is just another visitor in the house of our hearts. It comes, stays for a while, and eventually leaves. I found solace in the Buddhist concept of dukkha, the truth of suffering. We all experience loss, illness, and hardship. They are part of the human condition. By accepting this truth, I began to release the illusion that life should be free of pain. I stopped asking why she had to leave and instead started embracing the gratitude for the time we had together. I thought of her laughter, the stories she told, the gentle way she held my hand. Those memories became my comfort, my refuge, rather than a source of pain. Another shift happened when I started practicing metta, or loving kindness meditation. I sat with my grief and directed love toward myself, toward my grandmother, and toward all others who had ever experienced loss. I imagined sending her peace, wherever she was, and in return, I felt an overwhelming sense of connection. Love, after all, does not end with death. It continues, unbound by time or space. The pain didn't magically disappear, but something incredible happened. I felt lighter. I realized that acceptance wasn't about getting over my loss, it was about making peace with it. And in that peace, I found a sense of freedom I never thought possible. Grief was no longer my enemy but a teacher, guiding me toward deeper understanding and compassion. Acceptance does not mean forgetting. It means honoring the love we shared without being shackled by the pain of separation. It means living with an open heart, knowing that every moment is precious and impermanent. My grandmother's passing became a turning point, not just in my grief but in my approach to life itself. Through her absence, she taught me the most profound lesson of all, to embrace every moment, every joy, and every sorrow with an open heart and a mind at peace. Now, whenever I miss her, I close my eyes and breathe. I let gratitude take the place of sorrow. I remind myself that loss is not the end, it is merely a transition. A gentle reminder that love and presence are eternal. In that awareness, I find serenity, and in serenity, I find my grandmother once more. Chapter 5. How to practice acceptance in daily life. If you're struggling with resistance, here are a few ways to cultivate acceptance. 1. Acknowledge your feelings fully. Rather than resisting or suppressing emotions, allow yourself to fully experience them. Emotions, whether joy, sorrow, frustration, or peace, are transient waves passing through the mind. Instead of pushing them away, observe them with curiosity. When you say to yourself, "This is how I feel right now," and that's okay, you are practicing non-judgmental awareness. In Buddhist teachings, this is the essence of mindfulness, recognizing things as they are without attachment or aversion. A practical way to do this is through mindful breathing. When an emotion arises, take a deep breath, name the feeling, e.g., "I am feeling anxious," and watch it without trying to change it. Over time, this practice strengthens emotional resilience and self-compassion. 2. Let go of the shoulds. One of the greatest sources of suffering is our attachment to how things should be. We often hold rigid expectations about ourselves, others, and the world, when reality doesn't align with these expectations. Frustration and disappointment arise, instead of fixating on an ideal version of how things should be. Shift your focus to accepting what is and working with it. A simple but powerful practice is to replace should with could. For example, instead of thinking, "This should not be happening," try, "This is happening. How can I respond skillfully?" This mental shift fosters greater adaptability and inner peace. In Zen teachings, acceptance is not passive resignation but an active engagement with the present moment as it is. 3. Practice mindfulness and meditation. Daily mindfulness practice helps cultivate a deep acceptance of the present moment. Take time each day to sit in silence, focusing on your breath. Let thoughts and emotions arise and pass like clouds in the sky, observing them without grasping or resisting. This trains the mind to stay present without getting caught up in narratives of regret or fear. A simple meditation technique for acceptance is the noting practice. When a thought arises, silently label it thinking. When an emotion appears, name it sadness, anger, frustration. If resistance surfaces, acknowledge it. Resistance is here. By labeling experiences rather than identifying with them, you create space between your awareness and your reactions. Over time, this helps cultivate a mindset of equanimity, accepting both pleasant and unpleasant experiences with grace. 4. Shift your perspective. Every challenge, no matter how painful, carries a lesson. Instead of falling into a victim mentality, practice reframing difficulties as opportunities for growth. The Buddhist concept of dukkha, suffering, teaches that pain is inevitable. But how we respond determines our experience of it. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" shift the question to, "What can I learn from this?" This subtle change in perspective transforms suffering into wisdom. For example, if you are experiencing conflict in a relationship, rather than blaming the other person or yourself, ask, "What is this situation teaching me about patience, communication, or compassion?" By adopting this approach, acceptance becomes a gateway to inner strength and self-awareness. 5. Trust the flow of life. At the heart of acceptance is trust, trusting that life unfolds in ways beyond our understanding. The Buddhist principle of anicca, impermanence, reminds us that all things change. When we accept this truth, we loosen our grip on the illusion of control. One way to cultivate this trust is by practicing surrender. This does not mean giving up, but rather releasing resistance and allowing life to flow. A simple exercise is the letting go breath. Inhale deeply, welcoming all that is. Exhale slowly, releasing tension, expectations, and control. Repeat while silently affirming, "I trust in the unfolding of life." This practice encourages a sense of ease, reminding us that, just as the river finds its way to the ocean, life moves in its own rhythm. When we stop grasping, we create space for peace, clarity, and growth. Final thoughts. Acceptance is not about complacency or passivity but about meeting life with open-hearted presence. It is an ongoing practice, one that requires patience, self-compassion, and trust. Through mindfulness, reframing perspectives, and embracing impermanence, we can cultivate a deep and lasting sense of peace in our daily lives. Chapter 6. Embracing Imperfection, the Beauty of Life as It Is. Life is imperfect, and that is what makes it beautiful. If everything were predictable and flawless, there would be no growth, no learning, and no depth to our experiences. True inner peace comes from embracing life's ups and downs with an open heart. Finding freedom in imperfection. We often chase after perfection, believing that once we attain it, we will finally feel happy and complete. However, perfection is an illusion, an unattainable standard that leads only to frustration and self-judgment. Instead of striving for an ideal that does not exist, we can shift our mindset to appreciate life as it unfolds, flaws and all. A useful practice is to remind yourself, I am enough as I am, and my life is enough as it is. This does not mean giving up on growth, but rather accepting that growth happens precisely because of life's imperfections. When we release the need for control, we open ourselves to deeper joy and peace. The wisdom of impermanence. Buddhist teachings emphasize the principle of anicca, the truth of impermanence. Everything in life is constantly changing, from our emotions and circumstances to our relationships and bodies. When we accept this reality, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering, instead of clinging to what was or anxiously anticipating what will be. We can find peace in the present moment. One way to practice this is through mindful observation. Notice how a flower blooms and then fades, how the seasons shift, how your thoughts come and go like waves. This simple awareness helps cultivate a deep appreciation for life's ever-changing nature. Seeing challenges as teachers. When we stop demanding that life be different, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Instead of resisting difficulties, we can begin to see them as opportunities for growth. Hardships shape us, revealing our strength and wisdom. Every challenge carries a lesson, whether it is patience, resilience, or compassion. Rather than asking, why is this happening to me? Try asking, what can this teach me? This shift in perspective turns obstacles into stepping stones. Heartbreak, for example, can teach us about love and impermanence, while failure can show us perseverance and humility. Letting go of the fear of uncertainty. Uncertainty can feel frightening, but it is also where life's greatest adventures lie. When we stop fearing the unknown, we begin to experience life with a sense of openness and wonder. The greatest moments of our lives often arise when we least expect them. A helpful practice is to cultivate trust in life's unfolding. Instead of trying to predict or control every outcome, try affirming, I trust in the flow of life. This simple mindset shift can ease anxiety and open doors to new possibilities. The beauty of imperfect moments. Some of life's most cherished moments are unplanned and imperfect. A child's laughter, a sunset filled with unexpected colors, a heartfelt conversation. These moments remind us that beauty is found not in perfection but in authenticity. To embrace this, practice gratitude for small, imperfect joys. Keep a journal of moments that made you smile, even if they were unexpected or messy. Over time, this cultivates a deep appreciation for life's raw and unpolished beauty. Living with an open heart. Ultimately, embracing imperfection is about living with an open heart, accepting life as it comes. Without resistance or fear, it means embracing ourselves, flaws included, and extending that same compassion to others. When we stop trying to force life into a perfect mold, we create space for true joy, peace, and connection. By practicing acceptance, we discover that life's imperfections are not mistakes but gifts, each carrying its own beauty and wisdom. Chapter 7. Conclusion, an invitation to practice acceptance. Acceptance is not a one-time achievement, it's a lifelong practice. Some days will be easier than others, and that's okay. The important thing is to keep choosing peace over resistance, trust over fear, and openness over judgment. If you've ever struggled with acceptance, I invite you to share your story in the comments below. Let's create a space of support and understanding where we can learn and grow together. And if you found value in this video, consider subscribing for more content on mindfulness, self-awareness, and personal growth. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, may you find peace in every moment.